AITA for not congratulating my SIL on her pregnancy? My 30W SIL 33W just announced her first pregnancy. Me and my husband, her brother, already have a 2-year-old and her twin sister already got a few kids. So she was the last of us childless. Here comes the twist. We lost our second born in July on their birth. In an absolute unpredictable way. We personally don't wait until a certain week to announce a pregnancy because life is unpredictable and you have no guarantees anyway. So we announced this pregnancy way before week 12 and her exact words were, "You're pretty brave to announce the pregnancy that early." The birth of said child was also the reason we weren't able to attend her wedding, which just happened on the same day, a 4-hour drive away. We didn't spread the news about our son's death on that day though. She announced her pregnancy at a little get-together that originally took place to celebrate her and her twin sister's birthday. Apparently she wasn't pregnant with one children but twins, but lost the child early into pregnancy. And she was openly happy about it. She started listing all the reasons she was glad that she didn't have to buy everything twice and didn't have to do twice the work etc. I was sitting across the table and I didn't even know how to react. First of all, of course, her pregnancy announcement triggered some feelings of jealousy, and I would have wished for her to tell us beforehand and not in a room full of people. But I'm not mad about that or anything, although I find it a bit insensitive. On the other hand, her happiness about losing a child left me speechless. I mean, I guess I kinda get her train of thoughts, but I think some thoughts are inside thoughts, and I must admit I felt offended about being confronted with her reaction to child loss in that kinda way. Anyway, neither me nor my husband got up to hug her or congratulate her, and she later on texted my husband that she wasn't happy about the way we acted. Nah, we all react to trauma differently. Your shock in that moment was 100% valid. I'm sure anyone would struggle be congratulatory when another person is actively celebrating something that caused them immense trauma. On the other hand, your SIL is dealing with a very similar kind of loss. And if talking herself into being happy about only having one child is her way of coping, that's valid too. Ultimately, you're two women, family members, who have had to deal with the same, similar, very difficult situation. I hope you can explain your reaction calmly. After suffering a loss herself, I'm sure she'll be able to understand. At least a little. And while it sounds like she's in the denial phase of grief, I hope you'll be able to be there for her as she deals with her own loss, too. Nah, it's all very difficult. I'm so sorry for your loss, and of course you're still grieving and comments hurt, and that's okay. You're allowed to feel that way and also a little jealous. Your SIL is also allowed to feel the way she does, and honestly sounds like she may be putting on a brave face and making joking comments, as many of us do, as a way of dealing with her own grief. Maybe instead of growing apart and being bitter, reach out and be each other's support, for you both have lost and are grieving. Edit. Typo. Your SIL is probably trying to rationalize her grief. I don't see any Oz here. I don't think anyone here is an asshole. I'm so sorry for your loss. Nah, you're allowed to be uncomfortable and upset and process that in your own way. She's allowed to be excited and announce her pregnancy in her way. Not everyone considers a fetus to be a person. I don't. So losing one, especially very early on, and still being pregnant may legitimately be a relief to her. It would be to me. 2 babies at one time is no joke. You don't have to agree or approve. But the fact that you don't agree doesn't make her wrong. I think for most women, losing an early pregnancy is very different from losing a child during birth. And it's unrealistic to compare the two as equal tragedies. But, given how recently you lost your child, I can fully understand why her relief would seem offensive to you. Nah, I get why her comments would have been jarring to you. But you have to remember that everyone deals with loss differently. Nah, but you are kind of in the wrong. She lost a baby too. And she's dealing with as best she can. She doesn't owe you anything and she doesn't have to tell you separately. It's her news to share as she sees fit. You didn't have to hug her, but a simple, "Yay," or "I am happy for you," would have been sufficient. Nah, you have every right to have been stunned by the announcement. She has every right to be stunned by your lack of reaction. You all seem to be ignoring the feelings of the other due to the individual things you each are going through. Did your husband explain why the two of you reacted the way you did? I'm guessing if he does that, your SIL is going to be horribly sad that she hurt you. And I'd be willing to bet that this, or just time, will leave you sad that you didn't respond to her announcement better. I get that you're hurting. But she likely is too. She dealt with her pain in a way that helped, or she thought was helping, her to get over it. You dealt with your pain differently. You don't understand her action and she doesn't understand your lack of reaction. I'm so sorry for your loss, pensive face. Nah, I have a feeling she wasn't happy, but maybe relieved regarding the financial burden and workload that having twins can bring. People have a hard time describing their feelings correctly, and it sounds like she communicated her emotions hastily. It also sounds like your loss has impacted you in a way that is interfering with your ability to remain objective towards other people's experiences. I suggest two things. First, seek help to properly process your loss. Second, send a text over to your SIL and explain that you are happy for her. Your reaction was a response to some feelings about your own loss that you weren't expecting. And you should apologize for displacing those feelings onto her. She isn't responsible for managing your response to your personal triggers, even if you didn't know you had them. It's on you to ensure you can compartmentalize your feelings in the moment, then process them in private. Now that you're aware of the trigger, work to make it easier to deal with going forward. Also, how would she have known to give you a heads up about this when you weren't even aware that you would feel this way? I understand that she is aware of your loss, but how is she supposed to know that talking about her feelings of relief about her own loss would upset you so much? It's on you to manage your responses to triggering situations like this. Could she have checked in with you beforehand to let you know? Sure, but again, how could she have been more sensitive towards you when she didn't even know she needed to be? Nah, here, you had a valid emotional response since you were still recovering from your loss. She is likely putting on a brave face and trying to be happy for the surviving twin. I would still write it all out and apologize. Just saying that the lost twin triggered your grief so you weren't at your best. Congratulate her for her future offspring coming, and try to move on. I mean, I get where your emotions were coming from. If it were me, I might have still at least said congrats. But I think it's also entirely possible that she's trying to cope. I could be wrong, but I think too many people are too quick to jump to the worst case scenario and assume the worst. It's entirely possible she's choosing to try to put this positive spin on it to cope with disappointment. It's entirely possible she feels confused on how to feel because she lost a baby. But she's still pregnant, and for now, still going to have a baby. She lost a fetus she didn't really know for long, and she might have not wanted to bring down the mood with being depressed. I might get downvoted, but my vote here is nah. I think you both are dealing with some emotionally triggering things and that are hard to navigate. And she was perhaps a bit insensitive in handling, and you were a bit petty in keeping to yourself. But I don't think either of you was intentionally being awful. Nah, She's rationalizing her grief at losing an unborn child. It has nothing to do with you or your own loss. She can be unhappy about your lack of congratulations. But your DH can and should explain that the two of you are still grieving, and were a little taken aback by the way she was finding the positives in losing a child. You were shocked and overwhelmed but meant her no personal disrespect. It's difficult to say what's happening, but some people do use gallows humor as a coping mechanism to hide their anguish. Let her be unhappy. She was processing her feelings her way. You were processing your feelings your way. Given the background, you and your husband can be given a pass for not responding with immediate joy. That moment is past. Now you can move forward with more positive feelings toward the birth of this newest child to the family. NTA I was very pregnant when someone lost a baby and I knew to stay away from her because she was grieving. I asked her husband if I could send anything over to their house, but my baby belly was not something she needed to see when she was hurting. So sorry for your loss. NTA. She wouldn't have been an AH either if she hadn't called you and your husband to admonish the two of you for not reacting with joy. She is allowed to feel her feelings, but her trying to force you into faking happiness for her is an AH move. I am absolutely baffled by the YTA. You lost a child you carried full term 3 months ago. First of all, I am so sorry for your loss. You handled it like a pro. Way better than I could ever do. At 3 months postpartum I am still an emotional wreck. You have to also deal with the greatest loss someone has to deal with. Your SIL showed zero empathy for you and your loss. That you managed to stay quiet and not be overwhelmed with grief is so strong of you. I would not have been able to. SIL has every right to be happy and deal with her own loss in her own way. But it would have suited her to do without you being present and let you have time to come to terms with all this news. I am so sorry this happened to you. Dealing with family is hard. Dealing with family that is dealing with trauma is even harder. You all are processing grief and expressing it in different ways. For you it might be jealousy and depression. For her, it might be putting on a happy face and trying to ignore it. You don't know what she's feeling behind closed doors. You all need to give each other some grace. I would just explain you and your husband are still dealing with grief and need some space and to not take it personally. Then wish her the best and say you're happy for her. NTA. But congratulate her. Every child is worth celebrating. When I lost my child in the 2nd trimester, between my tears, I mumbled, I didn't want a newborn in February. Either way, it helped me cope with losing my child. She is doing the same.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.